We are talking about retirement. Are you ready to really change your life, your identity? Because is what's going to happen when you finally make that decision. My guest this half hour is Sylvia Solomon, the author of For the First Time, One Woman's Journey from Career to Retirement. Sylvia, the book actually came out of a blog that you started once you retired.
Yeah, I actually started it 4 months before I retired, when I started really thinking about what would retirement be like. And I think a part of me thought, well, if I think it through a lot and plan it, because that's the way I do most things in my life, then it'll be a piece of cake. So the blog actually turned into the book, but it really traces how not a piece of cake it was.
Yeah, so much for planning and thinking it's going to be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
The focus, though, calling it One Woman's Journey, obviously it's your story, but were you also hearing from other women when you were doing your blog about how they were dealing with the big change?
Oh, yeah, from lots of other women would comment, and it was really reassuring. If I would write about, at one point I wrote a lot about loneliness and just feeling lost. And it was really helpful to have all sorts of other women writing, making comments and saying, yeah, that's how I felt too.
So men and women obviously deal with it differently.
Well, as we deal with everything a little differently, perhaps.
I want to talk, though, about how it can have an impact on a relationship, because I don't think most couples say, this is the date both of us are retiring. It just doesn't work that way. So how that can create some friction in a relationship, let's say when one person has retired, the other one continues to work, or maybe one person has been at home and suddenly that other person retires and it changes the dynamics of that relationship.
Oh, yeah. In my case, my husband was still working. And that was fine when we both worked. We worked long hours. So, we'd come home from work, have something to eat. I'd do my work that I needed to finish up. He'd do his work that he needed to finish up. We were both exhausted because we were up early and at work all day. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, that's still his routine. I'm getting up all by myself. I'm on my own all day. And by the time he would come home from work, I was ready to go out and let's go to a movie, let's do something. Only his world had not changed. Mm-hmm. And that became a significant issue in our lives that we didn't deal with as well as we might have. We're no longer together, so I guess that's evidence of just how much of a toll it was taking.
But your story probably isn't unique.
No, I don't think it is at all.
You wonder how many other relationships end up failing once the kids have grown and you have both or one of you has retired and suddenly your roles have changed.
Yeah. You're just not the same person you were when you worked. You are in the inner sense. You still are the same. If you were compassionate before, you're still going to be compassionate other, but your whole life is so different and your expectations become very different. And I think it's, resentment is not a small thing. I only had one friend. I asked a lot of people ahead of time because I realized one of the things that happens is you cannot talk about this with your friends who are not retired. Mm-hmm. Because they're not going to be sympathetic. They're still exhausted going to work. Mm-hmm. And they think that you have hit the jackpot. You don't have to go to work, so they're not going to be sympathetic. And there was one friend I asked ahead of time that once I retire, when she still has to go to work, is she going to be resentful? And only she was honest, I think. And she said, yeah, a little bit. Everybody else tries to say they're not, but I think they are.
And so that then changes other relationships that you probably counted on through your working years, that suddenly you've retired and you've lost a bit of that network, that support system.
Yeah, you lose it incredibly quickly. I remember not long after I worked, I was near my old office and I called a colleague to say, do you want to go out to lunch? And he had to go to a meeting. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, thank God I don't have to go to a meeting. But then immediately I thought, oh, my God, nobody ever wants me anywhere anymore.
Okay, we can't just go on with all the negative. Tell us, Sylvia, how you have managed to change things and look at retirement so that you feel like, well, this is just a new chapter in my life.
By slowly going through that process of trying out different things, I've come to a place where I realize more and more that I'm busy again, doing things that are everything that I do is something I choose to do and that's really meaningful to me. Mm-hmm. And that's an enormous gift. So I can do lots of volunteer work, and I do lots of some consulting. I'm starting to do workshops to help other people get ready for retirement and make that transition more comfortably. But it's all things I want to do, and that's an amazing thing.
So in a way, you're back working because you are doing something regularly on some type of a schedule, but you're driving the bus.
That's right. That's right. And at any point that I'm not happy with something I'm doing, I have the option of saying so long.
It's interesting because even listening to you, of course, people are going to be listening saying, oh, yeah, great, you have that luxury. You've retired. Isn't that great? But I'm hoping people are also hearing the journey that you went through to discover that.
Yeah. It is a journey, and it's a hard one, and I think if we had more options on doing workshops and getting the kind of support ahead of time. I mean, the worst thing is you feel so very alone in it, because you really are alone in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless your best friend retired the same day you did. You're doing this on your own.
Yeah. The same day, and what are the chances of that?
Yeah, what are the chances?
And when you say your best friend, in a lot of relationships, that is your partner. And so that you better be able to share with your partner. Do you think, looking back on your relationship that failed, it could have been saved?
Oh, it might have been if I had been better prepared, but I think it is the same thing as what happens to a lot of us when our kids are all gone, and you start looking more honestly at, is this relationship still strengthening me? Is it still adding to my life? Or are we just drifted apart with very little to hang on to anymore? It just makes that more acute.
Mm-hmm. And that's frightening, too, for a lot of people as they're looking across the dinner table and saying, all right, we're busy right now, but am I still going to be with you 10, 15 years after we've quit our jobs? Yeah,
and in fact, when my husband and I first split up, I almost it was devastating, and I wasn't sure how to proceed. And then I realized that in one way or another, whether it's a marriage that ends or, the truth is we retire when we're getting older, we die too. Mm-hmm. So whether it's, you've lost your partner that way or the marriage just doesn't keep working, a lot of women end up not only retired and isolated, but suddenly on their own.
And I know I'm talking about people who retire from work, but back to a mother who's been at home with her children, in a sense, when they leave, her job has changed as well.
Absolutely. So this really applies more than just to retirement. It's anyone that's having this huge transition where what they've always defined themselves as is changing.
Is changing. I want to hear from you, 974-TALK, 974-8255. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
What are your thoughts on retirement?
Well, I retired 2.5 years ago.
How's it been?
Pardon me?
How has it been?
Well, I'm in a bit of a different situation. That's why I called in. I'm single, no children, and I retired at 54.
Which is really interesting, because then your work was even more your life.
Oh, exactly. I worked for my company for 34 years.
And so how have you redefined yourself, recreated yourself?
Well, I really haven't yet.
Yeah?
But that's what I'm kind of struggling with. But I was ready to retire. Mm-hmm. Like, I had 1 year to go, but I got not a golden handshake, but perhaps a tin handshake. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Nicely said.
But I really got a good pension, so money will not be a problem for me. Like, it's not going to be a heyday either.
Right.
But
finances aside, Cheryl, and I think a lot of people are saying, yeah, I think I'm set up financially, but I don't know if people are set up emotionally. And so is that what you're dealing with right now?
That's right. For the first 6 months when I retired, I was the one that slept till noon.
Yeah.
And really got into it. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'm hooked on TV now.
Yeah, me too.
Which I don't know. But my family, I have 3 brothers and a sister, and we're all in the same age bracket. So my whole family, like the 5 of us kids, are all retiring at 55.
Well, and there's support there.
No.
Oh.
You'd think, but not necessarily.
Well, they're all very highly motivated people. And they can't sit still, like they've got kids. Mm-hmm. They volunteer even though they're working, they're driving the kids around, and they can't sit still. Mm-hmm. Like if my sister even tries to watch TV, she falls asleep. So they're all getting worried, and especially my brothers, because they're like, what am I going to do?
Right.
You know, but they've got plans. Mm-hmm. Like one of my brothers owns a plane, so he's going off to the Caribbean to drive or fly rich people to go scuba diving. My other brother has another job, his own business. So they're not really going to retire.
Right.
So, and my mom has always been highly motivated. And so they, since day one, when I retired, I phoned my mom. And within 5 minutes, she phoned my whole family. And I said, well, it would have been nice. I would have liked to have told them. Right. She said, well, I had to warn everybody. And I'm like, what do you mean warn them? And, well, what are you going to do, Cheryl? And I'm like, I don't know. And the first thing, well, get a part-time job, volunteer, and no, I'm sleeping right now. Yeah. I don't feel like it.
But Cheryl, I think what I took from Sylvia is you've got to try different things until you really find it. So hopefully in the next little while you do find it. In the meantime, enjoy your time. Well, I really am, and I am planning on this spring moving to Penticton, so I can golf every day. Well, there you go, Cheryl. Thanks for the call. No problem. You have a great day. You too. Thank Sylvia, you. I sure appreciate your time, and if nothing else, it just has people thinking that there is a bigger scene that you've got to look at when it comes to retirement, not just financial, but also what you're going to do with your time, all that. Absolutely. All those things. And if you Google forthefirsttime.ca, that will take you to my website. With I'm continuing the blog, and that's where my workshops are. And great support. So there's some comfort for people there, I hope. Thanks, Sylvia. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Sylvia Solomon, for the first time, one woman's journey from career to retirement.